welcome back for the last night of this year's Noir City Film Festival. It has been an absolute delight. It has really been so great to be back in Seattle and to see so many great people and familiar faces from festivals in years gone by. Great to see you all again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support of the Noir City Film Festival, and I will temper our sadness at this being the last night by saying that we will definitely be back next year. And all the years after that until they cart me away and put me in doing all this. Okay, a couple of quick notes. Stay in your seats, please, after the screening of Gun Crazy, if you can. There's a little special treat that we have that will play up on screen at the conclusion of the film. I won't say anything more. It's just a little extra surprise we have to make the screening a little more special. So, and then we'll have the intermission, and of course, I would be remiss if I didn't pitch my book. You'll get a little taste of why this movie is so special in the introduction I'm about to give you. But I thought it was special enough that it merited an entire book to tell you about the creation of this film, the backstory of its making, the influence it has had on future generations of filmmakers, its place in cinema history. So I have written this book called Gun Crazy, The Origin of American Outlaw Cinema. And the book will be available at the intermission. I'll be there signing it. And as a special bonus, we have not many of these left, but we do have 6 copies of the book that are actually signed by the star of the film, Peggy Cummins. So if you're a little upcharge on those, I have to warn you, but not too severe, I don't think. I mean, to actually have a copy of this book signed by its star is kind of a big deal. She only signed 30 of them total, and we have 6 left that are here in Seattle. So if you want one of those, you can get it at intermission. Okay, now you know the drill. All of this is done through the auspices of the Film Noir Foundation, which I created a number of years ago for the purpose of rescuing and restoring films that were at risk of being permanently damaged or lost. And none of this actually happens without the support of agencies like SIFF, who gives us the ability to exhibit these films. We do this all over the country in 9 cities now, and probably more to come. But we also rely greatly on the generosity of just patrons to the foundation, and these are people who are nothing really more than incredible movie lovers. And tonight I want to recognize a couple of people who have been supporting the foundation for a while now with very generous annual contributions. And since I know for a fact that they're here in Seattle at this festival, I want to just give them a little certificate of honor from the foundation recognizing their generosity. I'm hoping this fellow is here in the audience. I've seen him here through the whole festival. He doesn't know I was going to do this. So of course here comes the embarrassing point when he's not here tonight. But I would like to recognize Seattle's own Buzz and Jeannie Bray, who have been, that silence means he's not in the house. So we'll see if Buzz, I sing Gun Crazy 20 times. He probably will be here for the next show, so perhaps I'll save his certificate and give it to him then. But I also want to pay tribute to a woman who I actually met here in Seattle for the first time several years ago, and she has steadfastly come to every year that it's been here in Seattle. She has attended. She's also attended in San Francisco. She's also attended when we do it in Hollywood, and she does all this by coming all the way from Japan. So I would like to present this certificate to Etsuko Tamazawa. Please, Etsuko, please come here and accept your commendation from the Film Noir Foundation. Here she comes. Okay, fantastic. Etsuko has also created a website, a Film Noir website in Tokyo. Yay! Thank you. Okay, ETSCO has stories to tell, believe me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. One of the great treats when we did our international festival in San Francisco, I surprised the audience by having ETSCO up in the booth do my entire introduction in Japanese. That tripped everybody out. That was great fun. Okay, here's the deal. You know that the premise of this whole festival this week has been A and B pictures. A picture on the top of the bill, B picture on the lower half. The thing that's so great about almost concluding, with Gun Crazy is it's both. It's both of those things. The producers who made this film, the King brothers, are legends in Hollywood. They were what was known, you'll even see this in the little thing we're going to show you after the film, they were called bottom feeders by a lot of the people in Hollywood who really resented, if not detested, the King brothers, Frank Maurice and Herman King, whose father was a very shady character involved in organized crime in Southern California. The boys got into the business through the pinball racket, which they eventually made a movie about. The dad was a bootlegger. They were considered the most reprehensible characters in Hollywood. They were dynamite film producers. They knew how to make movies on a low budget. They knew exactly what people wanted to see. They never lost money on a movie that they made, except Gun Crazy. Their mother, the queen of the kings, as they called her, warned them not to make this film because they were overreaching. These guys made B movies and they wanted to move up to the big leagues. And so they got Peggy Cummins, who was an actress at 20th Century Fox. There's a whole story about Peggy, who was an Irish lass who won a contest to come over and make Forever Amber at 20th Century Fox when she was just a teenager. None of that really worked out for her, but before she left to go back to the UK, this is the last movie she made. And man, you talk about going out gangbusters. This is incredible. And he hired an up-and-coming director, Frank King hired an up-and-coming director named Joseph H. Lewis, who had fallen out of favor at Columbia Pictures where he was working because he thought he was being disrespected. So you could see there was a lot of people working on this film who weren't getting the respect that they thought they deserved. From Peggy, her co-star John Dahl, the King brothers themselves, Joseph H. Lewis, and perhaps most significantly, the author of the final script of this film, a man named Dalton Trumbo, who at this point was actually blacklisted in Hollywood. He had just come back from testifying before the House Un-American Activities Committee. And as you might see in the motion picture that came out recently, Trumbo, where Bryan Cranston played him, Frank King was the first person in Hollywood to open the door secretly and hire Dalton Trumbo to write screenplays for him. And history has, until at least this movie came out, history had always told the story that Frank King was a reprehensible character who was preying on poor Dalton Trumbo when he was at the lowest point of his life, and Trumbo himself will tell you that's an absolute lie. He worked for Frank King all the way up to the end of Frank King's career. They remained faithful collaborators. It was not Kirk Douglas or Otto Preminger who were the first to speak out publicly and admit that they had hired Dalton Trumbo to write a screenplay for the movie. It was Frank King who admitted that on the radio because he produced a movie called The Brave One in the 1950s about a little boy and the bull that's used in the bullfighting and the boy's attempts to save the bull. And Dalton Trumbo wrote that original screenplay and won the Oscar for it, but of course he was not allowed to accept the Oscar. It was won by a man named Robert Rich, who did not exist. So Frank King was the first person to actually go on the radio and say, yes, I hired Dalton Trumbo, and so what? I don't care about a man's politics. I care about whether or not he can write. And he said, this is America. I thought that wasn't supposed to matter. So I'm a big fan of Frank King and a big fan of Dalton Trumbo. The guy who doesn't get enough credit is McKinley Cantor, who wrote the original story upon which this film is based. Appeared in the Saturday Evening Post. An incredible character. I won't go into it in great detail. It's all in the book. But he was originally going to direct this film. It was going to be the first film he directed. McKinley Cantor is the man who wrote the original story upon which the all-time classic film, The Best Years of Our Lives, is based. And not many people know that that's the same guy that did Gun Crazy, that wrote the story for Gun Crazy. If McKinley Cantor knew that Dalton Trumbo wrote the screenplay for this film, he probably would have had a heart attack and died, since he had a big sign up in his office that said, "Fuck communism." Yes, art makes us strange bedfellows. And McCantor claimed to hate this movie. Trumbo thought it was a fabulous lark that he wrote this, because he was secretly kind of writing as though these two lovers on the run were him and his wife Cleo, who were obviously outlaws and outsiders at the time that this movie was made. So he channeled a lot of that into it. And Joseph H. Lewis's direction of this film is absolutely masterful. He does incredibly influential things with the camera, stuff that hadn't been done beforehand. I'm not going to spoil it. If you haven't seen the movie, you will certainly... You thought the other night when I said you want to go on a joyride, I was only joking when I referred to Desert Fury that way. Now I'm totally serious. This is the joyride with 6 shooters blazing. So how many people have not seen this before? Oh! What am I talking for? Roll this thing! These people need to see this movie. Gun Crazy.